Welcome, traveler of the darkened path. Tonight, we descend into shadow, guided by whispered legend, to unmask the Banite Sith who rose under the rule of two. In hushed tones, we will weigh each lord by 5 measures of their dread, their depth of force mastery, the cunning of their deceit, the iron will that granted them survival, the cataclysmic mark they left upon the galaxy, and the legacy of fear that echoes long after their fall. As your eyelids grow heavy and the galaxy's hum fades, let these criteria be your lodestar. We begin with the faintest flicker of malice, one whose name drifts in rumor and journeys step by step toward the void's darkest sun. Breathe deeply and surrender to the night as the first chapter stirs in the silence. In the hush before twilight, we speak of one whose presence is felt only in flickers of intuition. Darth Cognus, once known simply as the Huntress, prowls the hidden currents of fate. In this silent canvas, her very name hints at precognition and peril, a spectral step unseen until too late. Listen now. Lingering at the edges of whispered chronicles, the Huntress began as a female Iktochi assassin, her mind aflame with visions. Contracted by Princess Seer of Doan to capture Darth Bane, she wielded poison and stealth with flawless precision. In the stone prison's dim corridors, she subdued the Dark Lord and delivered him to captivity. Yet as Bane's tortured breath echoed through dank walls, fate entwined their paths. Compelled by dreams and drawn by ambition, she appealed to Bane for tutelage beneath the rule of two. Renaming herself Darth Cognus, a nod to her uncanny foresight, she emerged from amnesty into shadow, pledging loyalty to whichever victor claimed the mantle of master. In that moment, her legacy as Seer and Sith was born. In the aftermath of Darth Bane's fateful duel with his apprentice, Zannah, Cognus stood in quiet deference, her third eye lightless as she awaited the victor's judgment. Though she had offered service to both combatants, it was Zannah who seized the mantle of Dark Lord. Under Zannah's austere guidance, Cognus honed her precognitive talents, weaving subtle illusions and force-dampening fields that masked her presence. Yet her rise was measured. She never eclipsed her master's renown, serving in the shadows to gather intelligence and safeguard the clandestine teachings of the Sith. Thus, her power grew in silent chambers, hidden until called. Darth Cognus's gift lay in prescience. She pierced the veil of tomorrow, sensing ripples of fate before they formed into waves. Her mastery of force-dampening fields allowed her to envelop Jedi prey in an aura of stillness, silencing midichlorian chorus and dulling lightsaber instincts. Though she could not match the raw might of Bane or his successors, her talent for subtle manipulation belied deeper knowledge of the Force's currents. In trials hidden from scornful eyes, Cognus bent the ambient energy, twisting moments to her advantage. These spectral arts defined her mastery, a ballet of unseen power that quietly caught foes unawares. From her earliest contracts, she exemplified cunning. As the Huntress, she curated perfect intel, ensnaring targets with whispered lies and misdirection. Engaged by royal patrons and operating in the shadows of Doan, she orchestrated ambushes that left no witnesses. Her methods were surgical. The telling omission of a single variable, the lethal precision of toxin blended to paralyze the vigilant. Within the Sith hierarchy, she employed silence as a weapon, revealing truths only when it served her purpose. Under the rule of two, Cognus maneuvered between master and apprentice, her loyalties shifting like smoke, earning both mistrust and grudging respect. Unlike the fiery ambition of her peers, Cognus's tenure was fleeting. She ascended to master after Zannah's victory, walking the narrow edge between promise and obscurity. Her existence was measured in clandestine missions rather than grand conquests. Though she survived the turbulent years that claimed many Sith, her name never graced holocrons beyond a reference. In the silent halls of Sith archives, her record is minimal, yet within that brevity lies a testament to subtle endurance under the gaze of darkness. By design, Cognus avoided open confrontation. Deeds rippled in the undercurrents of galactic politics, guiding Sith strategy from afar. She transmitted stolen secrets between master and apprentice, so holocron knowledge arrived to its heir. She never toppled governments or survived epic duels, yet influence shaped decisions that sparked covert wars and purges. In hidden communications, counsel was valued by Zannah and her successors. Silent though her hand, the tremors of her machinations echoed across star systems, unseen but profoundly felt. Though spoken in solemn holocron whispers, tales of Cognus drift through Sith academies as a cautionary breeze. Apprentices learn her name as a sign, power that slumbers until summoned. Her Seer's gift inspired dread, not through brutality, but through quiet uncertainty. In the silent dark, Sith masters warned charges of unseen eyes and futures shifting beneath feet. Thus, the Huntress's transformation into Darth Cognus became a lesson in dread, a reminder that truly greatest terror can dwell in a fleeting thought. As the last echo of Cognus's name fades into the void, we pause upon her fragile legacy, a blend of foresight and shadow. Chapter whispered chapter, her story reminds us that power wears many guises. The one we see is seldom the one that strikes. Listen as the winds stir once more, guiding us toward a new interval of dread. Prepare now to step beyond this wisp of malice and into the tolling heartbeat of the next tale, where the reckoning awaits. As Cognus's final whisper drifts into stillness, feel the darkness stir anew. Another shadow awaits your attention. She was the pupil who outlasted her master, the inheritor of a legacy born in blood and built upon destruction. Darth Zannah, whose very name coils through the roots of Sith sorcery like a venomous whisper, stands now before us in darkness, cloaked in the arcane, forged in the crucible of betrayal. Born as rain on the war-torn fields of Ruusan, Zannah's tale began in fire. A child swept up in the storm of the Jedi-Sith conflict. She was orphaned when her kin were destroyed in the cataclysm wrought by the Brotherhood of Darkness. It was there, amid the ashes of a failed order, that Darth Bane found her. Fragile, force-sensitive, yet unbroken. He saw in her the future he envisioned, the rule of two incarnate. A seed of power, hungry for knowledge, malleable yet strong. He claimed her, not as a daughter, but as an apprentice, to be shaped into a weapon for the Sith's rebirth. Zannah's path was never carved through brute strength. Where Bane brought destruction, Zannah brought decay. Where he battered, she infiltrated. Through years of rigorous training, she became fluent in the dark mysteries of Sith sorcery, those twisted incantations and illusions that ravaged the minds of her enemies. Her power did not scream. It whispered, and in that whisper was madness, unraveling the minds of Jedi adversaries, breaking their will before lightsabers even clashed. Her true ascension came in the final reckoning, a duel with her master, Darth Bane, as required by the rule of two. For a decade, she studied under his brutal philosophies. But when the time came, she proved that the pupil had not only learned, but had grown beyond the master. In a thunderous confrontation on Ambria, Zannah battled Bane not only with her blade, but with her mind. She endured the torment of his dark power, resisted his attempt to possess her body through Sith essence transfer, and ultimately prevailed. Whether by victory of strength, will, or cunning, she emerged as the new Dark Lord of the Sith. Under our rankings lens, Zannah rises not through overwhelming dominance, but through calculated mastery. Her force abilities, particularly in sorcery and illusion, were exceptional. She could invade a mind and tear it apart from within, reducing strong Jedi to shattered husks. Her cunning was unquestioned. She maintained her role for decades, concealing the Sith's existence while orchestrating schemes through intermediaries. Her survival was no mere chance. It was earned through vigilance, patience, and her belief in the long game. In terms of legacy, Zannah's significance is profound, yet subdued. She solidified the rule of two. She made it real. Bane may have authored the code, but Zannah was its first test, and its vindication. She proved that strength alone was not the future of the Sith, but strategy, secrecy, and the willingness to kill one's mentor when the time was right. Through her, the lineage endured. Through her, Cognus would come to carry the torch. And through that torch, centuries of darkness were kindled. Yet her impact on galactic events was limited. Zannah operated in shadow, orchestrating no great wars, toppling no empires. Her reign was silent, concealed, as the Banite line demanded. Therein lies the paradox. Her greatness lies in what she did not do. She did not expose the Sith. She did not seek glory. She buried them deeper in the bedrock of galactic history, where their roots could spread in secret. And so, her legacy is not one of fire, but of soil. She is the dark bloom beneath the surface, never seen but always present, feeding the twisted growth above. To many, she is a myth. To others, a cautionary tale of subtlety triumphing over force. A woman who smiled as she dismantled the light, one soul at a time. Zannah remains, in the shadows of lore, a figure of elegance and terror. The galaxy remembers her not in battle cries or Senate upheaval, but in the echo of screams that came with no wounds. Her madness did not belong to her. It was a gift she gave to others, one mind at a time. Now, as her robes fade into the dusk of history, we listen again for what comes next. For though Zannah was the storm behind the veil, the one who follows brought with him the chill of calculation and the ambition to break time itself. As Zannah's veil of madness settles, something colder begins to stir, more precise, more clinical. A mind not devoted to passion or wrath, but to perfection. In that precision, we find Darth Tenebrous. Tenebrous, the Bith Sith Lord, was unlike his forebears. His skull was high-domed, mind mathematically refined, and ambition tuned like a symphony of inevitability. He was no creature of mythic rage or arcane illusion. No. Tenebrous was a scientist of darkness, a constructor of futures, and in the sterile void between star systems, he plotted the final extinction of the Jedi with the patience of a galaxy turning. In the twilight of Zannah's long reign, Tenebrous emerged as the culmination of generations of secret refinement. Born into a galaxy on the cusp of new technologies, he saw not war as his weapon, but manipulation, economic decay, political fracture, genetic precision. A master of bioengineering and Sith alchemy, Tenebrous peered into the future with cold clarity. He envisioned the end of the Jedi not in one great fire, but in a surgical collapse, a plan to be executed centuries ahead. He designed not just tools, but legacies. It was he who created the scimitar, the Sith infiltrator that would one day deliver Darth Maul through the shadows. Sleek and silent, that ship was the echo of Tenebrous's mind, efficient, invisible, precise. He seeded technologies throughout the galaxy, familiar to governments and corporations, but secretly tethered to Sith will. Tenebrous's strength in the Force was formidable, though less theatrical than those before him. He excelled in precognition, calculating probabilities with such speed that he often appeared to anticipate outcomes, as if reading a cosmic script. Unlike his master, who wielded sorcery and illusion, Tenebrous regarded mysticism as inefficient. His focus remained on midichlorian manipulation, exploring the mechanics of life and death through experiment and calculus rather than vision. His intellect, vast and analytical, charted the future with unflinching detachment. The rule of two, to him, was not just tradition, it was data, a proven model. Each master-apprentice cycle a calculated mutation of the Sith genome, each betrayal a feature, not a flaw. In this model, Tenebrous sought to refine his apprentice as he would a viral strain, until the Sith could no longer be stopped by even the Force itself. But even the most flawless systems bear error, and in his apprentice Darth Plagueis, Tenebrous sowed his own undoing. Tenebrous misjudged his successor. He believed Plagueis would follow the plan, perfect it further. But ambition is a blight not easily mapped. On Baldemnik, amid rare cortosis veins, Tenebrous met his fate. Plagueis struck during an excavation, crushing him beneath falling stone. The betrayal was swift, unannounced. Tenebrous died calculating, surprised not by the betrayal, but by its timing. Even in death, he had contingencies, a secret experiment encoded in the Force, attempting to anchor his consciousness within his apprentice's cells through an unfinished essence transfer. Yet the attempt failed. The dark rejected him. His vision ended not in triumph, but in silence. Still, his impact is unmistakable. Under our lens of legacy, Tenebrous ranks not for terror unleashed, but for futures engineered. He never ruled an empire, never ignited a galactic war, but he architected the very machinery that allowed others to do so. His technological and philosophical groundwork fed into the rise of Plagueis, then Sidious. He did not build the Sith's final victory, but he drafted the blueprints. Without Tenebrous, there may have been no Maul, no secret invasions, no phantom menace. And yet, he lacked the raw dominance of Bane, the madness of Zannah, or the charisma of Sidious. He was sterile brilliance, monumental in concept, remote in execution. His legacy is a cold thing. No loyal acolytes, no cult of personality, a whisper of equations and probabilities, a vision of extinction etched in binary, not blood. Among Sith, few remember his name. Fewer still understand his importance. But for those who trace the dark's rise in patterns and shadows, Tenebrous stands tall, a quiet monolith buried beneath centuries of manipulation. His death was not an end, but a pivot. Now, as his presence dissipates like circuitry shorting in darkness, the next shadow rises, a figure who reached for the strings of life and death themselves, a moon with eyes on eternity. As Tenebrous' cold calculations dissolve into the void, a living blade emerges from the darkness, thirsting for vengeance and survival. A crimson silhouette unleashed upon the universe, Maul's presence is a silent roar of hatred, a pulse in the dark that vibrates through bone and echoes in the marrow of living creature. Born beneath twin moons on Dathomir, Maul honed his fury within the Night Brother clans before Darth Sidious claimed him. From childhood, he was shaped into an instrument of wrath, mastering his double-bladed lightsaber and bending the Force to feral precision. Sidious saw in him a perfect tool, youth fused with ferocity, loyalty untempered by doubt. In clandestine holocrons and brutal training pits, Maul's early years were a crucible of pain and discipline, forging blade and spirit in equal measure. On Naboo, Maul cut through the Jedi Order like a streak of red lightning across a midnight sky. His acrobatic assault over palace catwalks displayed uncanny speed and lethal elegance, each pirouette of his twin blade carving silent death. He channeled his rage into telekinetic throws, hurling royal guards and battle droids with devastating precision. Yet that same fury concealed flaws. In the whirl of his own momentum, Jedi turned his strength against him and severed him in two. But death could not still his hate. Clinging to life on Lotho Minor's junk-strewn plains, he survived on a thread of anger until savage Oppress discovered him. Night Sister sorcery and cybernetic limbs restored his form, but his mind remained a cauldron of torment. With each scream that escaped his cracked lips, Maul's resolve hardened, forging a new purpose beyond mere survival. Returning to the galaxy, he wove a network of crime lords and warlords into the Shadow Collective. He navigated betrayals and alliances with the precision of a chess master, each agreement a trap, each promise a blade hidden in velvet. On Mandalore, he negotiated with Death Watch, only to shatter their trust with a ruthless coup. His calculated blow against Duchess Satine echoed across the planet, revealing that even the purest ideals could be torn asunder by vengeance. For decades, Maul stalked the fringes of power, evading Republic enforcers and his own master's wrath. His survival became legend, a warrior reborn through agony, defying the laws of nature and the decrees of the Sith. In the underworld and among warlords, his name became a curse and a rallying cry. Rebels on Lothal felt the tremors of his return when he confronted Jedi Masters across battlefields not yet ripe for rebellion. His impact on galactic events was never overt, yet it rippled like hidden currents beneath calm waters. The Battle of Naboo catalyzed Palpatine's ascent in the Senate, a pivotal stroke hidden behind Maul's saber. His conspiracies on Mandalore fractured planetary councils, shifting alliances and altering Clone Wars strategies. He seeded unrest wherever he roamed, diverting Jedi vigilance from greater threats. Even on Tatooine, his final confrontation with Obi-Wan Kenobi became myth, replayed in holos and whispered in huddled corners of cantinas, ensuring his tale would outlast empires. His spectre even reached the fledgling Empire, whispered among inquisitors and acolytes who studied old transmissions to glean tactics. Dark acolytes in hidden sanctuaries practiced the style of his twin saber and the relentlessness of his assault, hoping to capture a fraction of his edge. Across distant systems, his name became shorthand for relentless pursuit, an epithet applied to bounty hunters and dark seekers who felt his influence from beyond the grave. In every skirmish, Maul exhibited a mastery of form that few could match. His rage was a weapon he tempered with ruthless precision. He combined brute strength with guile, using the environment as an extension of his will, sweeping scaffolding, swirling dust, and jagged rock all bending to each slash and thrust. Yet his greatest power lay in his unbreakable spirit, fueled by the memory of betrayal and the hunger for revenge. Maul's visage, tattooed zebra horns, ebony and crimson skin, glowing red eyes, became an enduring symbol of fear. Across smugglers' dens and imperial outposts, patrons hushed at tales of the Phantom Apprentice. Jedi holocrons recorded his name as a warning that raw power untethered by purpose leads only to ruin. When his body finally fell to Kenobi's blade on Tatooine, it felt like a victory, yet his legend refused to die. In the hush after his final scream, we sense both miracle and curse, a warrior too fierce for death, but too consumed by hatred to ever find peace. His silhouette is a warning etched into the Force, a testament that survival without purpose births ruin. Maul's story lingers in the galaxy's shadows, an echo of rage that pulses through every heartbeat of rebellion and tyranny alike. Allow the embers of his red fury to fade, feel the darkness deepen, and prepare for a presence older, more deliberate, to unfurl its will in silence. As the embers of Maul's red fury fade into silence, the galaxy's currents shift once more, revealing a figure cloaked not in fire, but in elegance and shadow. From the high halls of Sereno to the storm-lit chambers of Coruscant, his name once rang with honor. Count Dooku, Jedi Master, philosopher, arbiter of the Force. But the man behind the legends harbored a quiet discontent, a splinter lodged deep within the soul, veiled beneath layers of stately poise. Beneath that polished calm pulsed a mind weary of Senate corruption, disillusioned by Jedi doctrine, and seduced by the ancient whisper of power reborn. When the Sith offered purpose, he did not simply accept. It was as if the darkness had always been waiting. He emerged from the Republic's fading golden age like a rift in glass, and once shattered, nothing could be repaired as it was. The Order mourned him not as a traitor, but as a wound. Dooku's transformation into Darth Tyranus was not a fall, but an evolution, shaped by conviction and cold clarity. As he crossed the threshold into the dark side, he did so not with frenzy, but with quiet resolve. He was a scholar of Sith tenets, not a beast of rage. His betrayal was all the more chilling for its serenity. In the Jedi Temple, his lightsaber form was legend. Makashi, the duelist's path. Where others battered, he danced. He moved like flowing ink on parchment, each strike penned with precision. The blade, curved, elegant, was an extension of his will, a statement of refinement and deadliness. He wielded Force lightning with composed cruelty, threading currents of pain through the air like a composer directing symphony. Few could rival the cold brilliance of his presence. In combat, he was not rage, but inevitability. Grace bound to danger. Opponents fell not to fury, but to mastery, outclassed before the first blade even sang. Yet his most potent weapons were not bound in Kyber. They were ideas. Tyrannus's mind was a forge of schemes, each layered with subtlety. A master manipulator, he shaped galactic unrest like a potter at the wheel. Behind the Clone Wars' roaring cannons and cloned legions stood a single architect, draped in velvet, seated in shadow. With careful rhetoric, he twisted noble causes into engines of conflict. He fed separatist ambition while binding the Republic in perpetual strain. In a single war, he forged enemies and allies alike, both serving the same end: Palpatine's empire. On the surface of Geonosis, he orchestrated the war's first ignition, a deadly ballet beneath arena lights, where Jedi died and secrets were buried beneath sand and screaming. On Mustafar, he charted the mining guild's allegiance through whispered threats. In space stations cloaked in the gas clouds of Bespin, he sealed treaties with mercenary guilds, binding credits to blood. Every handshake concealed a dagger. Every treaty birthed a war. And yet, his enemies saw only a noble dissenter. That was his genius. Survival was another of his dark arts. Where Sith burned fast and perished sooner, Tyrannus endured. From assassination attempts to backdoor betrayals, he outmaneuvered them all, until the end. Palpatine's final deception came not with poison or blade, but with an apprentice's hand. Tyranus faced Anakin Skywalker in that cold chamber aboard the Invisible Hand, and in a moment, drenched in silence, realized he had been a pawn all along. When the Chancellor gave the word, there was no plea, no defiance, only the faintest tremor of realization. His death was swift, ceremonial, a sacrifice that sealed the fate of 2 orders. Yet even in death, his legacy rippled across time. The Clone Wars' birth and escalation, the Jedi's erosion, the Republic's fall, all bore Tyrannus's mark. His fingerprints lingered in forgotten war rooms and shattered temples. On planets razed by conflict, his ghost still stalked empty corridors, a whisper in the dark that spoke of manipulation cloaked in nobility. His impact cannot be measured in victories or defeats, but in the elegance of his devastation. And there were those who studied him, Sith and Jedi alike. Holocrons captured his teachings, warning of the seductive nature of logic turned cold. Sith initiates revered his mastery of deception. Jedi archivists analyzed his treatise, searching for where righteousness had turned to ruin. His very fall became an academic debate. Was he a traitor or a mirror? A reflection of what the Order might become if it turned its back on compassion and clung only to law. Even in rumor, he endures. Some claim his private estate on Sereno remains sealed, cloaked in Sith wards, its archives untouched by time. Others whisper that fragments of his mind were preserved in a shattered holocron, half Jedi, half Sith, forever debating itself in a tomb of knowledge. None can say for certain. His name, now wrapped in velvet shadows, remains one of the most enigmatic in galactic memory. Darth Tyranus, Count Dooku, remains a paradox. A man of virtue who sowed chaos, a master of light who chose darkness. His journey was not one of collapse, but of chilling transformation. His was the tragedy of clarity. Too much, too soon. And though he served as apprentice, his role in the Sith grand design was pivotal. So linger a moment longer in the silence he left behind, for something colder, darker, and more ancient waits just beyond the veil. A will born in ancient battlefields and forged in ritual flame. With the final echo of Dooku's silver tongue fades into the hush, the currents of the Force shift once more, drawing our attention to an origin older than any rival or intrigue. In the remote reaches of Apprentice, where twin suns cast dust into gold and storms groan beneath sulphur skies, a broken slave named Dessel forged himself into a weapon of destiny. His hands once cracked basalt in endless mines. His nights were filled with the rasp of chains and distant screams. Yet amid that despair, he tasted the dark promise of freedom in every heartbeat. Dessel's road carried him from slave pit to clandestine training, as whispers led him to Githany, a masked assassin of lethal grace. Found amid the smoking remains of a skirmish, He watched her move, silent as shadow, delivering death with a flick of poisoned blades. She taught him deception's art, how to mingle toxins with breath, to let the Force guide a subtle weave, so that murder felt like accident until too late. Under her tutelage, he transformed pain into purpose, crafting his broken will into a sharp edge honed by suffering. His body became a canvas of scars and resolve, each marking a lesson in survival. Yet it was in the shattered plains of Ruusan, amidst wind-blown bones and dying stars, that the Force spoke most clearly. When the Brotherhood of Darkness imploded upon itself in a cataclysmic dance of sorcery and blood, he saw the folly of countless Sith vying for dominance. From that crucible, Dessel emerged as the sole heir to ruin, carrying in his veins the storm's aftermath, the scent of ash and ozone forever etched into his flesh. At the field's center, he claimed the final holocron, uttering an edict that would echo into eternity. Two there shall be, no more. Reborn as Darth Bane, he methodically hunted the scattered remnants of his foes. Each confrontation was brief, a clash of blades, a swirl of dark energy, a final scream swallowed by silence. His mastery of telekinesis manifested in crushing pinches of midichlorians, storms of raw power hurled with the precision of a surgeon's hand. Even surviving Sith masters spoke in hushed tones of the storm he conjured, describing how the very air seemed to carve itself around him. Still, Bane's ascent was shaped by cunning as much as Force mastery. He wove webs of misinformation, feigning loyalty to weakened warlords while plotting their ruin. In the echoing halls of Sith tombs, he deciphered archaic holocrons, unearthing rituals that tethered spirit to stone and programs of essence transfer. His solitude on Dagshun's marshes became a crucible for forbidden sorcery, where he distilled half-remembered incantations into the marrow of his resolve. Each secret he uncovered became a stepping stone to transcendence. In moss-coated ruins and beneath blackened lightning forks, he cast runes that bound spirit and flesh, bending the dark to his will. Though centuries would pass, Bane endured betrayals that shattered lesser hearts. He anticipated each betrayal, as a chess grandmaster foresees moves before the board is set. Slaying would-be assassins hidden in starlight, he absorbed their final fear as sustenance. When Jedi hunters tracked his legend to forgotten temples, he dissolved into the nexus of shadow, leaving only whisper and driftwood. His solitude was his strength. In isolation, he sharpened his will until no mortal coil could bind it. In time, he found an apprentice whose hunger mirrored his own, cloaking her spirit in darkness as he initiated her into the deepest Sith secrets. His impact on the galaxy was seismic. By forging an order of two, he ensured Sith would never again carve their supremacy through endless internecine war. That singular creedal shift birthed silent manipulation on Coruscant's spires, puppet strings stretching from Senate chambers to Outer Rim cantinas. Without Bane's rule, Palpatine might never have mastered puppet or pawn. The visage of that rule might have faded like a dying star, its edict lost to time, but for the holocrons he left behind. In the hushed vaults of Sith academies, his name is taught as warning and ideal in equal measure. A hollow of his broken chains flickers in holocron vaults, a reminder that true strength rises from suffering. Apprentices learn that fear is forged in isolation and honed by adversity, that the soul's metal bends in solitude. In secret rites, they chant his name as an invocation, calling upon the will to endure beyond flesh. As the dusky wind over Apprentice slows to a sigh, we feel the echo of an even darker ambition stirring. A figure who sought not mastery of order, but of life and death itself, awaits in laboratories and cosmic libraries. Prepare, listener, for a will that would bend mortality to its whim, and heed the silence of Bane's legacy as you stand upon the threshold of obsession, beneath the shimmering vault of Coruscant's twilight. A presence unlike any other lingered in the hushed corridors of power. He was known simply as the Wise, a moon of the intergalactic banking clan, whose reputation for financial acumen masked ambitions far darker than credit lines. Born amid the marble columns and opulent vaults of the banking clan's high-rise spire, he learned that wealth could bend destinies, but he hungered for mastery beyond credits and contracts. In secret chambers lit by bioluminescent glyphs, he studied ledgers of life and ledger of death alike. He delved into the deep currents of the Force, studying its hidden threads with surgical precision. Unlike those who relied upon songs and ritual, he approached the Force as a scientist approaches matter, to dissect, to quantify, and to reshape. He theorized that midichlorians, those symbiotic organisms that tether life to the cosmic energy, could be influenced, even controlled. Whispers in the Senate galleries spoke of experiments conducted in clandestine laboratories, where hapless test subjects drifted between mortality and oblivion as his instruments of discovery. In Coruscant's political labyrinth, his influence reached beyond laboratory walls. He was a silent architect of policy, guiding Republic senators with counsel that bore the indelible mark of Sith calculation. Brokers of power sought his advice on fiscal measures for worlds teetering on ruin, never suspecting that each contract he endorsed contained clauses that sowed seeds of discord. Through manipulated loans and cryptic investment schemes, he bankrolled factions destined to fracture, ensuring that the Republic's foundations would tremble under debt and desperation. Centuries passed, and still he endured where others faltered. While warring orders of Sith fell upon each other in crimson duels, he retreated into obscurity, guarding his life through cunning and arcane safeguards. He learned to cloak his presence in the Force, a whisper among a chorus of roars. He survived engineered plagues he released to destroy witnesses, and political purges he ordered to eliminate rivals. Each close brush with oblivion honed his resolve. Every betrayal reinforced his doctrine that only control of life's ledger could secure true immortality. But his greatest legacy was not in laboratories or bank ledgers. It was in his final pupil, a senator named Palpatine, whose rise mirrored his teacher's methodology. He sharpened Palpatine's political instincts and deepened his understanding of Sith philosophy, presenting each lesson as parable of patience and subterfuge. It was in whispered counsel at late-night conclaves that he shared the most dangerous secret, that death itself was a variable to be mastered. He spoke of midichlorian symphonies and cosmic harmonies, teaching that the Force's notes could be rewritten. In myths and cautionary tales, he is remembered for that final experiment, one conducted in an ebony and gold chamber, where he sought to transfer life essence from one body to another. It was said that he succeeded in awakening the dead, binding their flickering spark to new vessels. But even in victory, he could not foresee the serpentine betrayal of his own apprentice, who struck him down in his sleep and claimed the mantle of ultimate authority. His death was a quiet affair, betrayed by the one he trusted most. Though his body lay in ruin, his teachings endured. In the hidden vaults of Sith academies, aspirants recite his edicts on longevity as gospel, each sentence a thread in the tapestry of dark wisdom. Holocrons bear his recorded voice, echoing through recondite citadels where only the most devoted dare venture. His obsession with bending life to will created a legacy of dread, whispers of unnatural resurrection, and the fear that somewhere beyond the veil, death might yet be undone. Feel the stillness settle, for in that calm lies the weight of a philosopher's ambition. Remember his name as warning echo. Now, from the ruin of his quest for immortality, emerges an even darker art. One perfected by a master of deception who would bend fate itself to his will. Beneath the ghostly glow of Coruscant's molten horizon, a figure in black glides through steel corridors like a shadow given form. Once a young hero of the Clone Wars, he became the embodiment of triumph and tragedy intertwined. Anakin Skywalker, the chosen one prophesied to bring balance, strode into legend with golden hair and golden heart. Yet beneath that promise lay a soul in torment, drawn by visions of death and guided by whispers of power. In a temple of red lighting and steam, his fate was rewritten in scarlet blood and ash. His beginnings were humble, a slave on Tatooine, dreaming beside twin suns of freedom and adventure. He raced pods across desert sands with reckless skill that belied his youth. When Qui-Gon Jinn revealed his destiny, Anakin embraced the Jedi path, trading sand for starships and nightmares for discipline. His rapid ascent through Jedi ranks spoke of raw talent, but in his heart simmered fear of loss, fear that would one day consume him. He mastered the Force with an intensity unparalleled, bending its currents through raw passion. On Geonosis, he defied death to save Obi-Wan Kenobi. In the Clone Wars skies, he danced among starfighters with unmatched instinct. His telekinesis flared like a storm, scattering battle droids and buckling starships in mid-air. Yet it was his bond to Padme Amidala, woven with love and dread, that became both tether and noose. In secret visions, he foresaw her death and sensed the tremors of his own unraveling. Drawn into darkness by promises of forbidden knowledge, he executed the night of horror in the Jedi Temple. His saber spun a deadly waltz, toppling younglings before he felled masters. The massacre echoed across the galaxy, a night's fall so complete that the stars themselves seemed to recoil. In those moments, his cunning revealed itself not through dialogue, but in the ruthless efficiency of betrayal. He carried out Order 66 with precision, turning clones into instruments of genocide. Wreathed in black armor that bound his broken flesh, his survival became legend. When Obi-Wan left him for dead on Mustafa's molten banks, his life should have ended among lava and ash. Yet an unquiet spark of the Force clung to him. Clad in respirator and cybernetics, he rose as both man and machine, a phantom of steel and ash wielded by emperors and feared by rebels. For decades, he enforced an empire born in shadow and blood, his presence quelling insurrections with the weight of inevitability. His voyages spanned star systems and battlefronts alike. He quelled uprisings on Lothal, broke rebellion on Hoth, and strode through the Death Star's corridors with unstoppable purpose. In council chambers on Coruscant, leaders whispered his name like a curse, redirecting fleets at his intervention. Despite his image as an unstoppable juggernaut, whispers circulated of Vader's doubts. In hushed exchanges, close advisors noted how he lingered in meditation chambers, haunted by dreams of a life lost. There, in silence, he wrestled with guilt and purpose, forging a fragile balance between duty and regret, a step unseen by the galaxy at large. The aftermath of his deeds reshaped the galaxy's very fabric. The Republic faded into myth, replaced by the iron fist of the Empire. Jedi vanished into legend, their stories passed in secret holocrons. Fear is the crucible of control, and Vader forged it with every measured breath. Stormtroopers and Inquisitors carried his legend to distant worlds. Criminals and dissenters locked doors at the mention of his coming. In hidden cells, rebels spoke of the redeemed father. In imperial academies, acolytes studied the fall of a hero, to learn that power without compassion leads only to ruin. His image, black helmet, chest-lit controls, and the hiss of modulated breath became an icon of dread and, paradoxically, of hope. In a final act of desperation on Endor's forest moon, he faced the Emperor's wrath to save his son. His final conscious breath was a choice of love over fear, a rekindling of the light he once embodied. The weight of his redemption shattered Palpatine's throne, and with that act, he fulfilled the prophecy he had strayed from. His echo resonates in every heartbeat of the Force, a reminder that choices shape destinies across silent stars. Prepare, listener, for the darkest sun to emerge at the journey's end, within the imperial core of the galaxy, behind the gilded facades of Senate chambers and the masked politicking of star systems. Emerged a darkness so refined that its shape became the axis upon which entire civilizations turned. He was born Sheev Palpatine of Naboo, a noble of quiet promise. He honed his facile smiles beneath frescoed domes, studied philosophy and diplomacy in the grand halls of Theed, and wrapped his venom in velvet. Privately, he studied under Darth Plagueis, the moon known to few and feared by fewer, absorbing secrets of midi-chlorian manipulation and immortality. Under that tutelage, his patience deepened and his ambition crystallized into something exquisite and terrible. He explored the Force not as a weapon alone, but as an artisan examines rare metal, testing its limits, bending its hues, forging it into instruments of fear, influence, and domination. His experiments in Sith alchemy were as elegant as they were monstrous. He studied the manipulation of essence, concocting poisons that dissolved hope like acid, and elixirs that sharpened the mind to a perfect surgical cruelty. Rumors swirled of his ability to cloak entire fleets, bend light into silence, corrupt technology with a whisper. He wove illusions through the Force like a spider wraps silk. His lightning could not only burn flesh, it could sever the soul. Force choke became a gesture of punctuation, and interrogation a form of orchestration. On his command ship, Jedi were peeled apart, mentally, spiritually, until secrets spilled like blood on Durasteel. In public, he was Senator Palpatine of Naboo, the urbane voice of compromise, a symbol of political hope in times of disarray. Behind this mask, he orchestrated collapse with surgical precision. He championed the undoing of the Voting Rights Act, fracturing democratic balance while maintaining the illusion of unity. He stoked planetary grievances, fed fires beneath trade routes, and whispered to disenfranchised systems with the precision of a poet. He offered representation while tightening the noose. His words bent committees to his will, seeded panic in the Senate, and made of bureaucracy a marionette theater. The Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo was no error. It was his overture, the resulting war, his rising crescendo. When the Clone Wars ignited, it was he, behind the mask of Darth Sidious, who played both conductor and ghost. As Supreme Chancellor, he mobilized the Grand Army of the Republic, hailing clone troopers as saviors. As Sith Lord, he directed the separatist movement from the shadows, ensuring both sides bled at his command. His foresight was divine in scope. He implanted biochips in the clones, coded with Order 66, turning loyalty into execution with a single phrase. Jedi became hunted, and generals became prey. Every victory the Republic claimed, every defeat the Separatists suffered, served only to tighten his grasp. He guided every faction with chilling composure, turning the galaxy into a chessboard where Jedi, clones, senators, and systems were all pawns. On Mustafar, his agents secured the Separatist leaders for a final culling. In Jedi temples, he sowed the seeds of suspicion that would later justify their annihilation. The war, in its entirety, was a ritual, an engine that fed the dark side, weakened the Jedi, and blinded the galaxy. And then came the strike. In a golden chamber beneath the spires of Coruscant, Sidious shed the final mask. Declaring the Jedi traitors and himself Emperor, he transformed the Republic into the Galactic Empire with thunderous applause. Freedom died, not with battle, but with acceptance. Fear and desperation forged chains more powerful than any prison. The Jedi were hunted to near extinction, struck down by the very soldiers they had led. In temples and back alleys alike, they fell, their deaths a chorus echoing through the Force. Sidious did not stop. He erected monuments to his supremacy, Death Stars, technological gods of annihilation, reminders that disobedience would be met with planetary death. He wielded his lightsaber with terrifying speed, battling Jedi Masters amid starlit voids and raining ruin across capital ships. His duels were not just fights, they were demonstrations. A single sweep of his blade could unravel a legacy. One laugh could shatter courage. And when death came for him, when the broken body of Vader lay scorched upon Mustafar's edge, Sidious reached further. Through cloning, Sith alchemy, and dark rituals lost to time, he survived. In the hidden labs of Exegol and the submerged halls of Kamino, he forged bodies, shattered souls, and splintered his consciousness. His essence was stored in artifacts, in vaults beneath Sith temples, in living vessels who bore his will. He defied the grave with the same cunning he used to conquer the Senate. His dominion reshaped the galaxy at every level. Planets lived in fear. Citizens vanished at midnight. Inquisitors hunted Force sensitives not for justice, but to prevent hope. Surveillance became religion. Even in the Outer Rim, his gaze lingered, patient and penetrating. After his fall, cults whispered his name, fragments of his mind still echoing in black holocrons. His writings were studied not just by Sith, but by those who sought to understand tyranny itself. His design endured, stitched into the DNA of every authoritarian regime that followed. In hidden archives, rebels found plans not just for the Death Star, but for future empires, instructions seeded with timeless insight. Sidious knew that fear never died. It only waited. To some, he is myth. To others, cautionary tale. To the Sith, he is the pinnacle. The one who brought darkness not through brute strength alone, but through vision and patience. Sidious understood that domination is not merely conquest, it is rewriting the soul of a galaxy. His final lesson is etched into every trembling corner of space. Power demands sacrifice, and destiny obeys the hand that dares to shape it without mercy. He did not merely command the dark side. He became it. Now, the echoes of his influence drift into silence. But the Sith legacy does not end. A final reflection stirs, a reckoning that draws near, where past and future collide. And so, from the faintest flicker to the devouring void, these lords of the rule of two stand immortal in whispers and shadows. Though their names fade into the night, their legacies stir the Force's deepest currents, ever waiting, ever hungry, until destiny calls them forth once more.